This is the video for Chem 223, Lab 3, iodometric titration of vitamin C. We're going to start today's experiment by weighing out approximately 8.7 grams of sodium thiosulfate. We're also going to need to weigh out about 0.05 grams of sodium carbonate. We're going to be dissolving these in about 500 milliliters of freshly boiled water. Since we're going to be boiling the water, we're going to start by adding a little more than 500 mils to the beaker. Since we'll be standardizing this solution, we don't need to have exactly 500 milliliters after the solution is boiled, but it's still good to start with a little extra. Now let's get the water on the hot plate and start it boiling. We'll speed this video up a little bit for the sake of time. Once you get a nice rolling boil like this, we can turn off the heat. Once the water has stopped boiling, you can add a stir bar, the sodium carbonate, and the thiosulfate. Look how cool this tornado looks. Once everyone's thiosulfate solution is ready, each member of the team adds their solution to a 2-liter flask. Note that this flask is used only for storing and mixing the solutions. We're not using it to actually measure 2 liters. If we look at the height of the thiosulfate solution in the 2-liter flask, you'll notice it's pretty far away from the mark. That's because the 500 milliliter beakers we were using are not volumetric glassware. They all just hold approximately 500 milliliters of solution. But as you can see from this experiment, the actual value is significantly less than 500 mils. Now we'll make the KiO3 solution. We'll start by weighing out approximately 1 gram. KiO3 can retain water, so we're going to need to put it in the oven for about an hour to boil off any water that might have complexed with the KiO3. Again, make sure you're wearing the proper PPE or personal protective equipment while taking the sample out of the oven, as it will be hot. We'll then reweigh the KiO3 and add it to a 500 ml flask. To ensure that all of the KiO3 gets off the weigh boat, we're going to rinse off the weigh boat with some water. Though we might not always show ourselves washing the weigh boat into the flask in every video, this is generally good practice when preparing a standard solution or any solution that contains a dissolved solid. We'll also rinse down the neck of the flask to ensure that any powder that might have adhered to the surface makes its way down into the flask. We'll then fill the flask the rest of the way with water. Once the flask is full, we'll also add a stir bar. Notice that after we add the stir bar, the water level rises slightly above the 500 ml gradation line. That's okay, because we already know there's 500 mils of solution in the flask. We'll then start with a new flask. To this flask, we'll add 50 mils of the KiO3 solution, 2 grams of potassium iodide, and 10 mils of 0.5 molar H2SO4. Note that this solution is now a dark red. We'll want to start titrating within about 5 minutes of adding the acid. Note that as you titrate with the thiosulfate solution, the KiO3 solution becomes a lighter color of red and eventually a pale yellow. When it becomes a pale yellow, you'll want to stop the titration and add the starch indicator. Adding the starch indicator then turns the solution a dark blue. Feel free to be generous with the starch indicator, as the amount that you add is not necessarily critical to the results of the titration, but you want the indicator to be dark so that you can clearly see the end point. Note that there's not a precise color of yellow that you need to stop at, just once it's approximately pale yellow. You'll then start the titration again and continue to titrate until the solution is both clear and colorless. We're now ready to analyze our vitamin C tablets. Take 3 tablets and determine their mass. Then add those tablets to a mortar and crush with a pestle until the tablets are a fine powder. You'll then weigh out 200 milligrams of the vitamin C powder and add it to a fresh flask. We'll also add 36 ml of 0.5 molar H2SO4, 2 grams of potassium iodide, and 50 ml of the KiO3 solution. We're now ready to titrate. Notice that again we're starting with a reddish solution, titrating until the solution is a pale yellow, adding the starch indicator, which turns the solution a dark blue, and then titrating again until the color of the solution disappears. Note that with the tablets, the final solution may be cloudy. This is due to binding agents within the tablets.